Hi everybody, welcome to the new podcast channel SocioTech. So this is being started by the Center for Machine Learning and Big Data Analytics, LNMIIT Jaipur. So the theme of this podcast will be Society and Technology. So this is primarily run by the students of LNMIIT and with an objective to create awareness among the general public about the impact of the technology on society. So this podcast is going to be for general public. So it will consist of either discussion by the students or external expert would be interviewed and we would be discussing various topics related to the theme. So we plan to release one episode per month, and in the near future we are planning to increase the frequency to once in fortnight also. So I hope this will be useful for all of you. So please support our venture and thanks a lot.
Hello everyone, I welcome you all to the SocioTech podcast hosted under the Center for Machine Learning and Big Data Analysis at the LNM Institute of Information Technology. I am Uma Bhasha and I have here with me my gentle co-host Naman Jain, who knows more about the things and is more informed. And today's guest is Mr. Arjun Saxena, who is the coordinator of DevSoc here at LNM Institute of Information Technology. And today we'll be talking about data privacy, data protection, what is its status in our current society. And data is quite essential as it has become more and more relevant in our conversations, and over the decade it has transcended into every field of our lifestyle. So over to you, Naman.
So we know that the importance of privacy and data protection has now increased very, very much. We know that every economic activity is now happening online, UPI and like banking activities, net banking and everything. So in this podcast, we'll talk about such data, how data is being protected and what are the regulations and laws for it. So over to you.
So I am basically very, naive in this regard. So I would like to ask our expert, what is data? Why has it become so important in our day-to-day lives? And I have actually heard this phrase going around that data is the new oil. Yeah. Can you elaborate on that?
So first of all, thank you so much for inviting me here. But yes, again, like all the definitions that we actually want, though they are all Googleable, but for a simplistic definition of data, it is any processed information. Any information which could be said in terms of words, text, number, or pictures, audio files, or anything for that matter that can be used to solve problem, create answers for certain questions, and or what can be analyzed to figure out something to be interpreted. This is precisely what data is. Now talking why has it become as essential as the oil, as you just said. So this is actually a generational shift which is currently going on, and it probably started a decade ago or something, wherein earlier all the big firms that we know today or what we have known since then, they all operated on oil. They all required oil for their functioning, for all sort of their purposes. And today all this thing has shifted to another category of thing which is called as data. So while data is also an abstract, it is also something which is quite very much essential for functioning. It is something which is traded, which is exchanged for millions of currencies, whatever the currency may be. And this is what it has made data as essential as oil used to be back then.
But this doesn't sound so daunting, those numbers, pictures. Then why do we need to protect it? What's the so much fuss about the data privacy, data
protection? I actually want to add on that why should a normal user be concerned about his data or her data? Because I've heard that data will help us to be, promote more specific content for the day for the viewer, and we are also giving consent in most of the cases about our data that yes, you can collect this. We are allowing cookies, and we are allowing us to be recorded. We are allowing our gallery access. We are allowing that. However, we don't know the repercussions, but from a perspective of a normal person, why should I be concerned about my data?
Okay, so see, first thing first, data is actually the virtual you. Okay, my data represents me, and though I'm giving consent for the access to certain information about myself, but then is this consent an informed consent? This is what the question is about. Because whenever you download any application, whichever software you use, or whichever application or social media platform, there are several things that need to be taken into account. You might have seen several pop-ups that show allow cookies, and what we generally do is, okay, this is a button which is actually quite highlighted, and we just go and click on it. None of us is so much interested in reading what
even though I'm a little tech savvy, but if I want to use something, or even it's a basic human instinct, that is, if you want to do something, you just click yes.
It often pops up at the wrong time where we are actually willing to do something. And
if you're trying to go through something, you'll not say cancel, but that will stop the whole thing. You'll just put on allow, because that will take you towards if you're trying to finish a project, you'll not say cancel, you'll not stay there like, oh my god, what I'm going to give to this company.
Nobody is reading that 11-page document that has everything written in more tech jargon, and
I just need to finish this project before my deadline, so please just allow it. That's how I would do, even though I'm a little tech savvy.
So this is precisely what the issue is, because while we are consenting for the use, but still we are the ones who are not actually literally informed about what this data is to be used for. So
this actually begs I'm trying very hard to not make it political, but this begs a question that since I feel that this is quite imposing, that if I press on the cancel button, I'll be redirected to the original website where I was, the original situation where I was trying to find a solution for my problem initially. So I could not move ahead without sharing my data. And the second thing is, they often put the technical jargon and every rule that they want, that they are imposing, like on an 11-page document that has very technical terms. So is there any safeguard, like the government is putting some kind of protection measures, or there should be some kind of institution that should be looking into it? There should be some kind of act. So I would like to know about, from my perspective, what is it going in India right now? That what is the measures to counteract this kind of situation?
Okay, so starting with what exactly are we as a state doing? So, of course, we are with the Data Protection and Privacy Bill 2019, and it is currently going on with the Joint Parliamentary Committee. So, while we are actually looking into several aspects where data needs to be protected and where our privacy needs to be actually accessed as a fundamental right, as it was said by the Supreme Court in one of their rulings. So, I think measures have been started, measures have been initiated, and just the execution part is something that we are still lacking for, and this is what the policymakers, they actually need to think about, because of course it is true that data need to be protected, it needs to be privatized, but then how is the question?
So I'll just take us a little back. I was asking if look, some apps need some permissions, right? Like if you're driving a car, you'll need that app will need to know where you are, your location. They'll need to have. So what is the problem in that they'll need some information, they'll need some access to your mobile, your some app, like some necessary things you'll need. So what is the problem in that?
See, the thing is that this is where comes into account essential permissions and non-essential permissions. So there are certain permissions, there are certain requirements that every application will probably need, and for a more politically correct statement, certainly need. For example, as Naman just said, that if there is a company which offers me, taxi services or something, so they need my location access. But if they're also asking me my microphone access, my access to my files, folders, my gallery pictures for that matter, I don't think this is essential for their working. And then this needs to be, actually put into account, that they must not deny me services if I am not giving them access to my microphone, if I'm not giving them access to my gallery pictures. So this is how things should be.
Thanks for
right?
answering that, because thank you, Mr. Saxena. You actually clarified a lot for me. You bifurcated the non-essential and essential data. But I can't help to, limit my thinking, and I am going in the direction that these apps, these institutions, these are imposing us to provide us our non-essential data to them, and the government is looking into it. But you also mentioned that it began after a Supreme Court ruling back in 2019 or earlier. So what was the story all about? What was the story that actually initiated this process in India, if anyone can tell me that?
So this all started with one man's quench for freedom. So what happened was, this particular man was incriminated in a false case, but the charges were later dropped. But even then, some news articles about him on the internet still had his name in them. So
Can I ask that what was this man's name and when did it take place?
but that would defeat the purpose of privacy, would it not? Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So he asked the government to ask the media outlets that had his name in their article to take them down, basically, because it affected his job search, his family reputation, and basically his existence in the society, because people still saw him as a
Associated
criminal.
him with that case.
Yeah. Everyone did. Basically, in India, we say that you are
News spreads like wildfire.
Right, So he won that case, but it started a much important cycle in our constitution. Later, Justice K.S. Puttaswamy, who were then retired, took up a case against the Union of Government, in which he asked that right to privacy should be recognized by the government in the constitution. This case was won by him, and then the government in Article 21 recognized the right to privacy.
More essentially, this was about they recognize it as a fundamental right.
Yeah.
This is something that.
When was this initiative?
This was back in 2017. Okay. At that time, also one committee was formed, which was B.N. Sri Krishnan Committee.
As a result of this case?
And during that case only, in which the government had formed this committee under Justice B.N. Sri Krishnan and asked him to present a draft for the bill, which was known as PDP bill. That was Personal Data Protection Bill. Mr. Arjun would like to little elaborate on that.
So this Personal Data Protection Bill, as we call it, as PDP Bill 2019. So this is something which is currently enacted in the surroundings today that we see. So precisely this bill, it bifurcates data into two segments. One is the personal data, and other one, the second segment is the non-personal data. Now, this personal data contains all the information that is related to a particular entity, a particular person for that matter. And then again, they have several bifurcations within. Like they have, sensitive personal data, critical personal data, and then
what comes under sensitive personal data? Can you please?
Okay, so this sensitive personal data is like your sexual orientation, your bank account password, your address, and all sorts of this thing.
Something that could actually harm us.
Yes, that could actually harm you as a personal entity.
That could maybe identify us as a personal entity. If leaked online, it could track back to us. Maybe that.
Yes, this is what the sensitive part of personal data is. The critical part is something that affects the public in general and at large, which is actually related to issues of national security or something like this. All sort of military information.
That is based on my life, like what kind of information I am consuming and I am liable to. If I am some kind of a higher government institution or someone who is working at a higher level in government. So the data that I have acquired would come under this.
Yes. So, everything that you do for yourself and every data that presents you as a person, as I earlier said, that you data is the virtual you.
Yeah.
So whatever that makes the virtual you of you is what
Sensitive data is.
personal data. Yes,
Yeah,
the sensitive personal data is. And then the critical part is, of course, the things which relate to the military things. Anything that can harm the
Okay,
national
so critical
interest.
will be anything that relates to the government, the security, or some kind of
That could
channel
endanger
or-
nation. Yeah, something like
Okay,
that.
so that is the critical category. And
And the non-personal data is anything which is not personal is the non-personal data.
that is how it is iterated.
Yes, this
Yeah.
is how it is iterated. And this
Even
is,
in the act. So it
yes,
is.
actually.
Oh.
Like, let me just for...
So that actually symbolizes that how no voice things are in India right now in this sector.
or probably it is it is a possibility that it is important to iterate it so, because let me just for the sake of example give this like say there's a website which records the number of users which are currently active there. Per se Moodle as we use it. Okay, so it shows what all users are online right now. Now this information, while it has got your identity, this is now here it is the subjective question whether you being shown as online is it a part of this personal data or the non-personal data. So yes, again these bifurcations are still they remain to be made precise enough, but
they're still quite hazy.
yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, the line is not clear. What you would say is personal and what would you say non-personal.
Is non-personal.
Yeah.
Okay, something more on this act that you could share with us.
Yes. So, like essentially, there are three things in this framework. Number one, the data, of course, the information which is being traveled. The data entity about whom the data is to be transported. And the third one, which is the companies or the firms that actually use this data, the entities that consume this data are the third party.
The data fiduciary.
Yes,
Say, yeah.
the data fiduciaries, as we say them. So
Can you give an example for this? I mean, I'm not still able to understand what is it like.
Because we have, I have personally read that, but I was not able to find an analogous, what you can say, structure in our real life. Because, of course, my interpretation is not that well as you. So you could actually help us with that.
So say we all use social media, right?
Yeah.
All of us actually use things like Facebook or Instagram or Twitter,
Snapchat.
Now we become the entity of the data entity.
Because we are providing the data. Data is about
yes.
Okay.
Yes. And then everything we provide about ourselves, they generally ask what our date of birth is, what is the month we were born in, the year we were actually born in. So
the pictures we upload are also under this.
Yes, of course they are. So this is all the second party, the data. Like first the data curators, we. Second thing, the data that we have curated, and third thing, the people who use our data. Those who process our data.
Yeah.
So you might have seen this. Whenever you scroll over Instagram, you like a reel, and then whenever you go in the explore button, they will give several
something
such
related to that. Huh?
Yes. So this is how our data is basically used
and processed
for these purposes. So
this is done by fiduciary.
Yes, this is being done by fiduciaries. Now this is what actually that needs to be controlled.
Okay.
That how and where this data is actually processed. And here comes the question of data localization and things related to this. Because, and per se, is the bill that we were actually talking about. So this bill also mentions that the sensitive part of data, if it is consented by the users to be processed and utilized for a certain objective, which cannot be fulfilled within India, it can be transported outside.
Yeah, but with consent, right?
Yes, but with consent.
Ours and the governments.
And the governments, of course. So, like let us consider it a fourth party, which is not essentially into the frame, but still mediating among us.
Okay.
So, we and the government, if we together agree, then our data, our sensitive personal information, it can travel outside for processing if the objective can only be fulfilled.
But it still needs to be stored in India only, right?
Yes, but it needs to be stored.
That is imposed by the law.
Yes, a copy though can be sent.
Okay.
But the critical data, that can
Affect the government's privacy and
the
security.
government's privacy, the military operations. All this needs to be essentially kept only in India, and it can in no form travel outside the Indian land. So this is where data localization is a thing, and this is where the control over processing and the objective of processing needs to be amended. And precisely this is where data localization is essential for. Because if I could go on elaborating, so say a data of mine is transported to a country X, which is like for the purposes of processing, and they don't have certain well polished laws for data privacy. So it doesn't matter whichever law you have in India, but even if a copy of my data is there, they can use it in the way they want to. And we have no, our state will have no like we cannot create objection over their use if it is in their territory. So this is a place where data localization
plays a kind of a loophole in. So most of the country should focus on restricting this kind of use also. So how is India doing in this parameter, that the data being sent out and then being processed, like in this regard, that how is India's policies are fueling and controlling the data localization measures?
Okay, so see, we are still in the process, of course, of making such policies, but yet again, as I said, that we have already created laws and clauses which protect the critical data from traveling outside. The only thing that remains to be answered is the sensitive data and again the informed consent. While we consent that yes, our data may travel outside, but then the purpose needs to be specified. That if this is being used, it must be used only for this purpose. And why is it so? That this data needs to be processed in a certain way. Like
a person should know what is happening with his data, if it is happening. Like, why is it being processed in what way? A person's data should be his choice. Like if my date of birth is being used for some reason, I need to know that reason. That is something I think he is trying to say.
Like, just for the sake of example, if we go on, so say whenever we are in a traffic situation, so there are several surveillance cameras that are installed. Now these camera may per se they capture your face or the registration number of your car or anything. Now this can be used for several purposes. Now if you use this for where you need underpass, where you need a flyover, where you need more stringent surveillance for the traffic, where accidents are more prone to occur. So now all this thing doesn't need discrete data. Like they need not know that Omabhash was traveling, or I or Naman, whosoever is traveling. All they need is aggregated data. The data,
one car was traveling at this speed from this place.
So like most often the cars that come by this way, they have so and so speed and they come from this direction. They usually take this much time from, and where actually they come from, where actually they go, and this now, so all this needs to be aggregated. Okay, they don't need it as individual data points. So this, and now for the purpose of building a flyover, this needs to be processed and this needs to be transmitted to the designated place. But prior to this transmission of data, this data can be depersonalized, or what we say is that our anonymity can be maintained. Anonymization can be done over this. So this is where
I remember one of a case that happened in US, not recently, but I guess about a decade ago. So Netflix posted a problem in which they posted, like he said, depersonalized data of some users, in which it had like a user and some of the ratings he gave to some
specific shows.
So then they asked the public to create an algorithm in which it can recommend them better movies than the Netflix originally did. Like what Netflix had an algorithm, and if public can give a better algorithm, then they would give a certain price. That was the problem. But after it was solved, some public actually what they did was they found a way to backtrack those data, that depersonalized data, and link that to actual person. Yeah.
So they could actually backtrack those preferences and that kind of data that was provided by the company in the name of anonymity while maintaining that.
Yes.
And still they could backtrack
and
it.
they had to take
that's
the
a
whole
disaster
problem.
from Netflix side, first of all. We need to be mentioned.
Yeah, this posed a very big problem, that even if the government says or the big corporation says that your data has been anonymized before they sell it to or before they give it to some third party, is it actually so? And I also would like to give another case of Cambridge Analytica. They took our data via surveys, via Facebook likes, and said that they were using anonymities, but still they were able to use it to win election for Mr. Donald Trump, as was found in certain...
This
And
is
in
where I
fact-
want to
in fact, they use that who are the Facebook friends of the person of whom the data was being processed. So even the Facebook friends data was being utilized here to aid this campaign.
So I actually want to know more about this aiding process, because I have been, as a normal person, you often get this issue of data privacy get into your peripheral attention when something big happens and the news is all over about it, that Cambridge Analytica, the data has been raided, Facebook data breach, and what kind of data do they collect. They have not mentioned what kind of data they do collect, and there has been a lot of report and news about and buzz about Russia meddling with US elections by using the data of the users of different platforms. What can someone, after the data has been there, to a specific institution, for example, per se, someone as capable as Russia, would do with our data that could affect something like the election? Or I know this data has been collected, but what is it used for? How can it manipulate us or in some kind, harm us?
See, once they collect your geographical location, and then as for was the case for this Cambridge Analytica. So what they did was they studied your mood, whether how often do you get angry, or how often you choose for certain sorts of services.
What post you like, what post you react angry on, and such like that. Yeah.
And all these things, of course there are several things in your mood that relate you to your ideology. Okay, so if you this is just what for the sake of simplicity, if they perceive, okay, this person has been quite aggressive since a very long time, and he lives in a place where the wing for the election is moving towards a certain
paradigm, right or left.
So they will push you more towards the same thing, and if it's opposite, so they will
according to what they
slightly try to nudge you to their direction, something like
post that could engage you more with the opposite ideology.
If I am a very stout supporter of the left wing, if my data has already been breached, and if they could access my Facebook feed, or could instigate or initiate different kind of post, can they actually send me the post which would actually make me lose trust in the left? Like their failures would be more highlighted, or the what you can say, achievements of rights are more propagated.
Yeah, something like that would happen if, first of all, they would try to see if you would be someone who would be influenced by such post. If not, they would just Facebook algorithm would just
because
keep
we are
you
actually,
in that.
We are actually putting a lot of data, so they could actually analyze that. Will we be be able to manipulate, or what are the methods of manipulation? So these could also be done by big institutions. I know it's scary if you say yes, because I'm not well informed.
Yeah, if you're naive enough, yes. People are.
Most of people are.
Yeah. Even though people are educated, I have seen people who are educated but still naive. So I don't think it has something to do with literacy, but yeah, if people are naive, they can be nudged into some direction using Facebook posts and something like that. Yeah.
Like even if you compare it with your intelligence, so there is another thing called artificial intelligence, and they use it precisely to fool you. To fool the human intelligence, they have got something called the artificial intelligence.
So we need to be more stringent about our laws regarding these kinds of things.
Yes.
So bringing it back to the base of the Indian context, how is India doing? We can move ahead and we'll be actually talking and comparing the Protection Act of India and America, because most of these questions are actually coming from American background, because they are more
They've been
more deeply involved in this thing, because actually the Facebook many social media giants are more answerable to those governments than us. They don't tell us mostly what our data is used for, and India is also not very hands-on in our approach to data. So how is India doing, like from the world's perspective and from the perspective of needs? Do India need to amp up its ammunition against this? And
also adding to that question, the PDP bill was presented in 2019, but I have read up something about it, but I have seen also that bill was later given to JPC, that was Joint Parliamentary Committee, for the review. Why was it so? Why wasn't that bill straightly forwarded towards to become a law?
Okay, so taking the second question first. So the PDP bill, essentially, as I said, that there are certain loopholes that still need to be actually filled with concrete and cement. So this is for this purpose precisely. This has been sent to the Joint Parliamentary Committee, the JPC. Just giving you a small example for this. Let's say that your data is available to several kind of companies, several kind of firms. Now they need to use it for their training purposes as well. You might have often heard that your call may be recorded for training and operational purposes. Now, if it is being used for this purpose, how will anyone ensure that you have not spoken something that could actually lead you to a mishappening in the sense of cyber crimes? So small things like these, they need to be actually answered. Then again, there could be certain personal sensitive data that are actually available with a third party, but then for protection of some other law, or for safeguarding some other some other instruction which has come from the constitution, some other constitutional applications. Now this data needs to be used there. So what can be the middle line? What can be the conveyor belt for this? All these things need still to be defined.
Thank you, Mr. Saxena, for your answer and for your time. We'll be talking in-depth analysis of India's Data Protection Act, and talking more about what needs to be done, where we're lacking, where the governments could learn a lesson from the other incidents that have taken place, and we'll be pitching it against the American Protection Act and talking in detail about it in the next episode. So stay tuned.
Thank you so much for joining.